Today, I'm in my own little digital universe, searching for Colt House, to meet with CEO Keri Gilder and discuss acquisitions, customers, technology, and the future. For the last 30 years, the name Colt has been synonymous with connectivity, sustainability, and customer service. So I am delighted to talk with Keri in person about transformation in the industry, how Colt is reshaping itself today, what its customers need tomorrow. For the times, they are a-changing. Social, environmental, technological change is all around us. But a common denominator within that change is the role of telecom networks, connecting people, information, things, and enabling us to take other technologies to make that change positive. But what that is doing within that is also changing our requirements, and this is very fast. If I think of from a business perspective, I've gone from wanting to say that I am a digitally driven business to one that is AI powered, and that has profound implications for what I need from my telecom network providers. It means I need them to give me access to data anywhere within my business so that I can train and run AI models. It means I need significantly robust cybersecurity implementations across my business as I grapple with both more bad actors and proliferating threat capabilities. And finally, it means that I need partners who can take the complexity out of their area of my business so that I can focus on the really core business value that I can add to a wider economy. On that note, Keri, it's wonderful to have you here with me today to talk about that change, what that means for you at Colt, but also for your customers. So taking that standpoint, what is changing for you at Colt and what's getting you excited about the future?
I'd say a lot is changing at Colt, and thank you for having me here today. I think there's a lot of things to be excited about. This is a time of transformation, whether it's at Colt, it's within the industry, or it's actually out in the world, on a large scale. And that comes with sustainability, it comes with geopolitical concerns, et cetera. And so what we are doing within Colt is really focusing first and foremost on the integration of an acquisition of Lumen Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And through that acquisition, what we have tried to do is something that only 1% of companies, I'm starting to find out, have decided to do, which is truly integrate the business into the Colt business. And what that means is that we've gone through a complete transformation on the back end of our IT systems. We're in the midst of starting to migrate the customers over to the Colt platforms. And through that process, try to do everything that we can to set us up for the future, to be successful, to have a simplified environment for our employees to operate in, but also for our customers to interact with.
Now, that was a big acquisition which took place in November 2023. On that journey of truly integrating it into the Colt business, what are some of the key lessons and milestones on that journey?
I think if you look at telecommunications industry in general, the technical debt that has been associated with acquisitions as a necessity of growth for companies is tremendous. This is because the technology has been really good. So it lasts for 20, 30, and even many more years. And as that technology has lasted, the business cases to remove it, to pull it out, just haven't proved in. There's no return on investment capital for actually taking those out. And so what's happened is as acquisitions happened, it's like a glue-on rather than a truly integrate. And what we have done completely differently is say, no, we're not going to take on the technology debt. We're not going to inherit 300, 400 systems. We're going to simplify this down to less than a dozen to operate the business holistically. And that means very, very hard work, I would say, because we are doing it the right way, but it is not the easy way. And so I think as we look towards the future, that's one of the things that all telcos are going to have to start considering is how do they actually gain operational efficiency with all these glue-ons that they've done over time. Colt is not going to be in that position. We're going to be in a position where we've truly integrated the company, and therefore 2 years from now, a year and a half from now, we're going to be in a perfect position to have simplicity and operational efficiency to be able to focus on what we need to focus on, which is our customers.
Keri, you mentioned there about customers. When you're thinking about the impact of the integration on your customers, what is the benefit to them of this?
I think ultimately what it basically means to them is we will have a simple way for them to interact with us that will have speed of service, because we'll be able to do things very quickly. We won't have all of the swivel chair type of activity that normally happens with an integration. And we'll be able to make sure that at the end of the day, their networks are secure and reliable. And that's what they really care about. So all of the things they care about, we will have. That will be stable. They can rely on Colt, but we will also make it so that they can very simply interact with us, and we will get things done in the time frame that they need us to.
In a world where everything is getting more complex, bringing out simplicity is really needed. And you mentioned customers there. It'd be great to look forward towards some of those. What are you seeing changing in your customers' needs as you go forward?
Well, first and foremost, every conversation starts with security. And I think that's the geopolitical environment that we're in. It's also the environmental issues that we're seeing with climate. We're starting to see more hazardous conditions that are impacting fiber, whether that be subsea or it be terrestrial. It doesn't really matter. And then you have more bad actors out there than you've ever had before. And the DDoS attacks that are on the networks are incredible at this point. And so, of course, the first thing that CIOs want to do is protect their company's data and protect their company's business. So it starts with security, and then it moves very quickly to how reliable are you and how stable are you? And so it's security, it's stability, and then it's simplicity, because we have to actually work within their operational envelopes. If you look at the dynamics of CIO budgets over the last year, what you'll see is that they've grown, but they've only grown a very small percentage point. You know this at IDC. If you actually overlay inflation on top of that, they're all negative. There's no growth. So all CIOs are having to do more with less. And if they're having to do more with less, the only way to do that is to simplify their operations. And that's one of the things we're very focused on, to try to help be that easy button for them.
Fantastic. And that ties in with what I said in that intro of how can partners really come there and drive simplicity where there is complexity for them. I want to just pick up now in terms of that structural transformation element and put these kind of two together. Something which we see at IDC is by the time we hit 2030, there's going to be a significant structural transformation, both across the telecoms industry and elsewhere. So from what you're seeing now, and you're kind of looking in that 1 to 2 year horizon, when we start looking out towards 2030, looking at the industry as a whole, what stays the same? What is different from your point of view?
I think the industry fundamentally will change. And I think there's a couple reasons behind it. If you look at traditional telecommunications networks on the consumer side more than business, bandwidth has now stalled out. So there is no bandwidth growth, and it is predicted that that is going to be the case at least through 2029, through 2030. If that's the case, then there hasn't been the killer app that has actually created this value creation, this bandwidth acceleration capability. And I think that that's true for now with AI, because it is largely text-based. Even if it becomes video-based, what we'll actually see is a move of AI application versus a Teams or a Zoom, or other videos. So I don't think there's going to be this massive additive at the consumer level of bandwidth requirements. We are seeing that on the business side as the large language models and the small language models start to get built out. We are seeing a massive surge in bandwidth requirements as the training happens within the model. And that's in the long haul and in what I would call the mid-mile type of space. However, that entire structure is also changing as far as number one, location, and then requirements for latency. And so I think if you look at the overall fiber footprint and the requirements on connectivity, they're fundamentally different in 2030 than the way traditional telco networks have been built. Now, we have an advantage at Colt, which I'm super excited about, because with the acquisition of Lumen, what we actually found is that Colt's built our networks one way, Lumen built the networks another way, and that combination is actually the magic sauce for artificial intelligence and working between the large language model and the hyper data center and the enterprise where those small language models are going to be built. So we fundamentally think we're in a fantastic position for that transformation to take place, and that we're actually probably 3 to 4 years ahead of the rest of the operators because of this combination.
Fantastic. And I talked about their coverage in my early introduction of being able to connect where the data is and bring that together. And you covered that very well in terms of how Lumen EMEA and Colt's networks complement each other to that point. When you're thinking about the additional investments, what do those look like to make sure that you are supporting your customers on their AI journey and really driving value and not just use cases from AI?
I think AI right now is highly around productivity gains. And so it's enabling them to get the data when they need the data, to be able to assure that the data is quality and that it's not synthetic data and it corrupted in some way. So I think we'll be able to have the ability to have more data quality assurance. And then on top of it, if you look at the way that that customers are going to have to work in the future, we talked about sustainability a little bit a little while ago. We're using AI within our environment, and we're building out a platform that will enable our customers to have visibility to what is happening in their networks. So it'll be proactive understanding of vulnerabilities. It also allows them to do green pathing. So as they're trying to meet their science-based targets, they can see which route actually has more carbon versus others, and they can make a choice as to which one they want to pick. And then when it comes to data sovereignty, we can also help them when we look at what we call intent-based networking. It's what is your intent on where you want your data to go and when you want it to go in that direction, and give the customer more control of that environment. So I think it's those elements of observability, sustainability, security, and simplicity all coming together.
So just to pick up on that there, you mentioned the element of sustainability, the green pathing. That is a concept which, when I talk to many executives, not just within telco, but also out in other industries, sustainability and AI feels like quite a hard circle to square. So how does that look like within Colt? Where do you make AI sustainable, or how do you support the sustainability?
So Colt's, I think, started to look at sustainability, one, before we had targets, before we needed to do reporting, and before it was cool. And that was about 5 years ago. And we decided at that point that as a telecommunications operator, we were going to be sustainable by design. So everything that we do within the company starts with sustainability: environmental sustainability, social sustainability, employee sustainability, business sustainability, and customer sustainability. And as we look at that, and I'll take the environmental because that's the number one thing that usually comes up, we are concerned about it. The power increase with AI is around 160% more within a data center than it is otherwise. Now, GPUs are starting to get better. There's technology that's advancing that is, bringing that down significantly, almost 30% since GPUs were deployed. So I think that we are starting to see the technology itself become more sustainable. That being said, it's super power hungry. And when hyperscalers are starting to look at how they build out their large language models, they start with power. So that tells you something. And I think for us, we have to continue on our journey on making sure everything we do within building, outside building, with our customers and designing our networks is sustainable. And we've been very good at that so far. We have EcoVadis Platinum, pretty positive. We're the only telecoms operators that can claim that, and we've been claiming that for the last couple of years. We have a CDP carbon disclosure project, level A, which is very good. We're committed to the UN Climate Pact. We've done a lot of things to make sure that we're green and that our employees are habitually thinking about it. So I'm not worried about Colt. I am worried about the industry as a whole. And I believe our situation is that even though we may not be the biggest telecom operator out there, we continually lead in innovation, whether it be network as a service or sustainability. And I think we can lead in this, and we can help others understand those actions that have to be taken in order to become more sustainable. At the same time, we're currently working on 2 papers, one to the EU and one to the UK government, specifically around the trifecta of power, data center, and connectivity, to bring those voices to the table at the same time. And that's the problem right now, is they're independent voices. They can't be any more. It's so intertwined that it's critical that we actually have a combined perspective and that we're working with governments to move their AI and their digital economy agendas forward.
The UK is a great example. In fact, earlier this year, there was a move to make data centres part of that national critical infrastructure framework. And in fact, on that power part of a trifecta, we have seen those hyperscaler data centre operators actually investing in nuclear power because, as you say, it is just so intensive to that respect.
I think the issue, though, of course, you have Microsoft with 3 Mile Island in the US. I think the issue we see in Europe is that level of power is just not available, or there's an unwillingness to turn it back on. And so I think we really do need to think about nuclear. I think we also really need to think about impact on public grid and whether there's actually a need to build private grid for AI in particular. And that may be the case, that we actually have to build out private grid so that we don't have energy impacts to the consumer.
I would love to dive into that more, Keri, but I think it's time for us to start drawing this all together. So we've talked a lot about what's potentially going to go on over the next 5 years, but let's refocus on Colt. When you're thinking about Colt for 2030, what is your vision?
My vision is that when you open up the newspaper, you'll see that Colt is the most sustainable telecommunications company in the world, that we're the most scalable telco company in the world, meaning we can get our customers anywhere in the world that they want to go, and we can do that on demand. And we make it simple for our customers to interact with us, so they like doing business with us. We're the preferred supplier for large enterprise, medium enterprise, where they actually have capabilities that are required outside of home country. And so it's that geographic scale, it's the simplicity, it's the scalability, and then it's also this drive for sustainability by design.
Thank you very much, Keri. So on that note, it's been a wonderful discussion looking at how Colt is transforming, what this really means for its customers, and also what we can expect leading up to 2030. Hope you enjoyed watching. Thank you, and see you next time. Of course, we also discussed lots of other really important stuff too, like caffeine and sugar intake, who had the best backhand. And curiously, not long after this, Keri asked me to leave.